Chairman Omens, Ranking Member Wilson, and esteemed members of the subcommittee, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify on this important topic. The value of higher education is being viewed more skeptically right now than at any other time in my life, and I think there's a very good reason for this. So in addition to all the categories of students Dr. Salini just mentioned, if you just take the typical student, the benefits have been stagnant. The wage premium for going to college has not increased in 16 years, and prices, on the other hand, have increased pretty substantially. The combination of these two trends, so stagnant benefits and rising prices, has slowly eroded the value of higher education. So how can we increase the value? I see two promising paths. One is to encourage lower prices, and that can be accomplished in a few ways. So one has already been mentioned, which is price transparency. So there was a recent Government Accountability Office report that found that about 91% of colleges obscure or mislead their students about the price of attending college. So for a new law that increased price transparency would increase student and parent awareness of the cost of college, and their increased resistance to paying those high costs would enforce some market discipline on the colleges. Another method of lowering prices involves combating the Bennett Hypothesis, which is the tendency of colleges to increase their prices in response to financial aid. As more and higher quality information on costs and quality, such as value-added learning outcomes and earnings outcomes, are available, that will shift the nature of competition from reputation-based competition, which we have right now, which drives up costs, to value-based competition, which will drive down costs. When determining a student's aid eligibility, we could also use the median cost of college. So right now we use the cost of attendance, which the college is allowed to set by itself. The median cost of college would just be the median among the cost of attendance figures. And this would help sever the link between an increase in prices and an increase in aid eligibility, which would help defeat the Bennett Hypothesis. A second promising path is to increase value, to increase values and improving accountability. So historically, we've tried several accountability mechanisms, such as cohort default rates, the 90-10 rule, and gainful employment, but these have not worked very well. But there are some market and outcomes-driven performance accountability metrics that could accomplish much more. Two types of metrics have significant potential to improve accountability in higher education, and those are risk sharing and return on investment. So for risk sharing, right now, if a student does not repay their loans, the taxpayer suffers huge losses, but the school gets to keep all of the money that they were paid up front. Risk sharing would change that by requiring the schools to reimburse taxpayers for any losses that they incur as a result of the education that they provided to their students. The simplest version of risk sharing is to just have the college co-sign the loan so that when the student is unable to repay, the college then gets a bill for it. Some colleges are already using a version of this called the Loan Repayment Assistance Program. But another way to implement risk sharing is to have the college reimburse the taxpayers for any realized losses. And so the Congressional Budget Office currently estimates that the subsidy rate on student loans is about 18%. So what that means is that for every dollar that the government lends out, taxpayers are losing about 18 cents. So the risk sharing would basically require the colleges to pay that 18 cents back. But the amount of reimbursements required of the colleges would vary dramatically based on the outcomes for their students. So if you look at the typical computer science or the typical registered nursing degree, their earnings are high enough that they are able to repay their loans without imposing any losses on taxpayers. So those colleges would not have to reimburse anything for those students. If you look at the other end of the spectrum, a field like fine and studio arts degree, the subsidy rate for that discipline is about 69%. And so colleges would be required to reimburse about 69% on average for those students. In terms of return on investment, another set of potential accountability metrics, return on investment would track basically benefits relative to costs. By taking account of both benefits and costs, ROI metrics give a much more comprehensive assessment of the value of the education. So for example, a one-year certificate program that increases earnings by $2,000 would have a very high ROI if it only costs $1,000, but a very low or even a negative ROI if it costs $100,000. ROI metrics can be used to apply carrots and sticks to colleges. For example, colleges offering high-value programs could be given performance bonuses. In contrast, low-value programs could face sanctions, including losing access to federal financial aid programs. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to answering any questions you have.